Chapter 4 of Strength and How to Obtain It. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Strength and How to Obtain It by Eugene Sandow. Section 5, Chapter 4, How to Exercise. In commencing the system of exercises described and illustrated by the anatomical chart, there are certain questions which every student naturally asks himself. Probably the first of these questions is, what part of the day ought I to devote to these exercises? The answer to this question must depend on the pupil himself, on his leisure, and on his inclination. Some persons find the early morning the best and the most convenient time. Others prefer the afternoon. And a third class, again, find that they feel best and have the most leisure at night. I do not, therefore, lay down a hard and fast rule of time. The golden rule is to select such part of the day as suits you best, always avoiding exercise immediately after meals. If possible, let 2 hours elapse between a meal and exercise. Moreover, do not exercise just before going to bed if you find it has a tendency to keep you awake. Many of my pupils find that they sleep much better after exercise, but there are some upon whom it has a reverse effect. If possible, the pupil should always exercise stripped to the waist. If he wears a singlet, it should be cut well away round the arms, so as to allow of free play for the muscles around the shoulder. It is also desirable to exercise before a looking glass, for then the movements of the various muscles can be followed, and to see the muscles at work and to mark their steady development is itself a help and a pleasure. In performing the exercises, the pupil should bend the knees slightly and keep the muscles of the thighs tense. The legs will thus share in the benefit of all the movements. What I wish to impress on delicate pupils is the desirability of progress by degrees. Many men, before beginning my system of physical training, have been so weak that doctors have thought little of the prospect of saving their lives. Yet, today, they are amongst the strongest. They have progressed gradually, always being careful not to undertake too much, and thus to adapt to the exercises to their own individual requirements. It may be mentioned also that the old, as well as the young, may derive great benefits from my system, though all who are over the age of 50 should moderate the exercises on the lines suggested in the table of ages for pupils between 15 and 17. My exercises will also be found of considerable benefit to persons who suffer from obesity. Pupils must not be discouraged because after the first few days' training they may feel stiff. It sometimes happens that a young man or woman, or perhaps a middle-aged one, sets out on the course of training with the greatest enthusiasm. After the first 2 or 3 days, the enthusiasm perhaps wears off. Then comes a period of stiffness, and the pupil is inclined to think that he cannot be bothered to proceed with the course. To such pupils, I would say, in all earnestness, don't be overcome by apparent difficulties. If you wish to succeed, go forward. Never draw back. This stiffness, moreover, becomes a very pleasant feeling. You soon grow to like it. Personally, indeed, it may be said that it is one of the most agreeable sensations I have ever had. Frequently, pupils ask me how long it should take them to get strong. The answer again depends on themselves, not only on their physical constitution, but also on the amount of willpower they put into their exercises. As I have said already, it is the brain that develops the muscles. Brain will do as much as dumbbells, even more. For example, when you are sitting down reading, practice contracting your muscles. Do this every time you are sitting down leisurely. And by contracting them hard and even harder each time, you will find that it will have the same effect as the use of dumbbells or any more vigorous form of exercise. It is very advisable for all pupils to get into the habit of constantly practicing this muscle contraction. In itself, it is an admirable exercise, but it is perhaps even more valuable owing to the fact that it improves the willpower and helps to establish that connection between the brain and the muscles, which is the basis of strength and condition. It will be noticed that throughout my exercises, I make a point of alternate movements. By this means one arm, or as the case may be, one set of muscles, is giving a momentary rest, whilst the other is in motion, and thus freer circulation is gained than by performing the movements simultaneously, and the strain upon the heart and lungs relieved. Another question which pupils are constantly asking me is whether it is right for them to perspire after the exercises. The answer to this question is that it depends on the constitution of the pupil. If you perspire, it does you good. If you do not, it shows that your condition is sound already. Of course, it will be understood that I am answering in this, as in other questions, for general cases. There are always exceptions. Again, what, it is asked, are the general benefits of the Sandow system of physical training? The benefits are not, of course, confined to the visible muscular development. The inner organs of the body also share them. The liver and the kidneys are kept in good order. The heart and nerves are strengthened. The brain and energy are braced up. The body, in fact, like a child, wants to be educated, and only through a series of exercises can this education be given. By its aid, the whole body is developed, and, as will be seen, pupils who have conscientiously worked at my system testify freely to the good results obtained, not only in the direction of vastly increasing their muscular strength, but of raising the standard of their vitality and general health. For the beginner, the most difficult part of my system is so fully to concentrate his mind on his muscles as to get them absolutely under control. It will be found, however, that this control comes by degrees. The brain sends a message to the muscles. The nerves receive it and pass it on to them. With regard to the willpower that is exerted, it should be remembered that whilst the effect of the weightlifting is to contract the muscles, the same effect is produced by merely contracting the muscles without lifting the weight. This question of willpower has, I am aware, troubled a good many of pupils. The majority find it difficult to, quote, put all they know, end quote, into movements with small dumbbells, and consequently are apt to be disappointed at the results of their work. Not infrequently, I have received a letter stating that the writer is doing the exercises an immense number of times, occupying several hours a day, 3 or 4, or even more, and yet does not find that there is very much improvement. The reason is obvious. He is simply, quote, going through, end quote, the motions and not really working on them. On the other hand, here and there, I come across a man possessing an amount of willpower out of all proportion to his strength. The consequence is that he soon gets exhausted and either cannot get through his exercises or only does so at the cost of becoming thoroughly done up and jaded. The great rule that progress in a direction of the exertion of willpower should be gradual and ever continuing is one that many people confess they are unable to carry out. Now I have for long been perplexed to find a means of remedying this. And at last I think I have discovered a method whereby the amount of willpower exerted by the pupil can be regulated.